in your bubble. Put some more air in your bubble. If you stay in your comfort zone, that's where you will fail. You will fail in your comfort zone. Success is not a comfortable procedure. It is a very uncomfortable thing to attempt. So you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you ever want to be successful.
You need goals for your health, your career, your finances, your relationships, your personal and professional development, and your community and spiritual growth. This will immediately put you in a separate category from people because most people have no idea what they really want. Most people are unconsciously preoccupied with the fear of failure, which blocks them from setting clear, specific goals. If you don't set clear, specific goals, then you can't fail to achieve them because they're so vague. This is a major reason for failure.
The consistency of work. Monday, get better. Tuesday, get better. Wednesday, get better, right? And you do that over a period of time, not like 1 month or 2 months. I mean, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And then you can get to where you want to go. This year, I'm going to get better at that. Next year, this, and then so forth and so on. And then patiently, I was able to catch them.
Your personal life. You need to have rules in your personal life. And if you have rules in your personal life that you follow, you don't need that many of them. If you have a rule that says, hey, wake up early, if you have a rule that says work out every day, if you have a rule that says eat clean, if you have a rule that says get your work done, be productive, don't waste time, if you have those rules in your life, you're probably doing pretty good as long as you obey them. Now, if you can't follow those rules, then you need to put more rules in place. You need to be one of those people that sets this thing on your phone where it turns off at 10 o'clock. So you're not wasting time on that. You need to be the type of person that wakes up in the morning and says, okay, I'm not going to eat anything until I get done with a workout. That's my rules. Oh, and by the way, I can't control myself when there's a sleeve of freaking Oreos. So guess what? I have a rule that I'm not going to have any junk food in the house. And if you're wasting 4 hours a day watching TV, watching streaming services, which is now like putting heroin into your house because you can just tap into it at any time, well, guess what? Now you need to make the rule that you're not allowed to have any TV at all. You're not watching it. You can only watch it on, Saturday from 7 o'clock at night until 10 o'clock at night. That's it. That's all the TV you get.
Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Your mind has to be stronger than your feelings. Think about every poor decision you've made in your life.
Gosh.
There was more emotion that was involved in it than there was mind. Every single one of them. Think about it.
Really was.
Your feelings keep you in bed. Your mind tells you, get up.
What makes you a leader is your ability to make a decision. Who's with me on this, right? And anybody can make the easy decision, right? So what makes you a leader is you can make the tough decisions. And what makes you a leader is you make the decision. What makes you a great leader is, I may be wrong, but if I have to wait till everything's resolved, nothing's going to get resolved. So I'm going to make a decision. If I make a decision and it's wrong, I'll find out quicker than if I sit on the fence while my life goes by.
8 out of 10 fail. They have to do it 3 times. They spend a decade before they get their hit, or they work at one company for 15 years and they finally get an exit. It's more like that, and the personal sacrifice is huge. There is no soccer game on Saturday. There's no Sunday dinner with the family. You're working because some guy in China or in India or some woman out there is kicking your ass because we're in a global competition now. And so I don't care what your business is, men, women, you have to understand that you're going into a huge lifestyle change. And I tell people it's not for everybody. Don't do it if you don't have the stamina to get kicked around and driven into the ground and get up and do it again and beaten up by people that tell you, this is not kumbaya stuff. This is hardcore stuff.
If you live a useful life, that is a good life. A life worth having lived. And like I said, I would encourage people to use the mental tools of physics and apply them broadly in life. But I'd encourage people to read a lot of books. Just read, basically try to ingest as much information as you can.
and try to also just develop a good general knowledge. So you at least have like a rough lay of the land of the knowledge landscape. Like try to learn a little bit about a lot of things. Because you might not know what you're really interested in. How would you know what you're really interested in if you at least aren't like doing a peripheral exploration broadly of the knowledge landscape? And you talk to people from different walks of life and different industries and professions and skills and occupations. Like just try to learn as much as possible.
Big advice was it's not about any particular skill, it's about combining skills, right? The world is becoming an ever more complicated place. Everything is slamming together, right? Fields that used to be discrete are now combining, due in a large part to what we've been talking about. And so it's not about any individual skill, it's about combining skills and then constantly layering in new skills. And so like the great example is you can be an engineer and you can be an engineering track, you can be a writer, be a professional writer, but what if you're an engineer with writing skills, right? And then you can be the engineer who can then actually articulate what engineers do, which might be helpful. Or you could be a writer, right, who understands engineering culture and you could write books about technology, right? And all of a sudden, like both of those are like highly differentiated skills. Like those are very special skills. And then what if on top of that, you threaded in knowledge of education, and then you have the ability to write about technology in education, and all of a sudden that's a very special thing. And then basically through the course of your life, you just keep layering in, you keep layering in more and more skills.
I believe loving your work is a right and not a privilege. I despise the fact, I lament the fact, I curse the fact that so few people get to say, I love my job, as if they've won some lottery. You know, you go out with your friends and somebody says, I love my job, and everybody goes, oh my God, you're so lucky, right? That to me is madness. Everybody, the vast majority, should get to wake up and say, I love my job. It is a right. It is a God-given right that we should love where we work. And we should demand it. We should demand that our leaders provide an environment in which we want to come, where we want to care about each other, where we feel safe to express our vulnerabilities and our fears and our concerns, that we're open to correction and discipline and feedback, that we're not defensive, because we know that it's being given to help us improve and grow, and we want to improve and grow.
How many people have you met in your life who have said things like, I had that idea, I knew about that, or I was so close, but I gave up? I think sometimes the difference between success and failure, winning and losing, is a very fine line between those people who continue to move forward.
Typical career advice tends to be discover your passion. What motivates you? And by the way, that's important. Of course you should, because if I hate that, then you're probably not going to be good at it. You're certainly going to be miserable, right? So passion is important. But like when you think about it from a business perspective, an entrepreneurship perspective, it's like, well, what are your product and services? What are your skills? What are you offering? Well, what does the market want? Well, maybe you say, well, look, I'm really, really good at writing, but actually speaking on video, I'm pretty good at, and that's actually, in fact, there's much more demand for that. Right, and so there's what the market looks like. There's the competition, right? So like, well, what are my competitive edges? What is the thing that I have that fewer other people have?
Always success and failure. You just have to know where to look for it. And that means that's a learning moment.
So you say every failure is success in learning if you know how to learn.
Exactly. You just have to look for it. Because then you use that again and you make sure you don't make that mistake again, or don't allow that mistake to happen. So your goal is to then, just because it didn't work out the way you wanted to, take that knowledge, take those learnings, and reapply it to a new direction. And therefore, you're going to get better. No one's, you've had failure, I've had failure, and it takes years of building up that kind of thick skin around you. But that's what it means to be resilient. You just get up and you keep going. And I can't tell you, there's been times when I just sat there and I was like, oh, the world's gonna be over. And then, you know what? You just look at it and you think about it, and you have to project yourself, not today, but to project yourself into the future.
If there was one concept that I would suggest to people to take a daily confrontation with, is fear. The problem with fear is that it lies. For me, the daily confrontation with fear has become a real practice for me.
Stress primarily comes from not taking action over something that you can have some control over. So if I find that some particular thing is causing me to have stress, that's a warning flag for me. What it means is there's something that I haven't completely identified, perhaps in my conscious mind, that is bothering me, and I haven't yet taken any action on it. I find as soon as I identify it and make the first phone call or send off the first email message or whatever it is that we're going to do to start to address that situation, even if it's not solved, the mere fact that we're addressing it dramatically reduces any stress that might come from it. So stress comes from ignoring things that you shouldn't be ignoring.
Okay, here's the deal. If you want to be successful, here's the thing you have to do. You have to jump. There is no way around it. You have to jump. Every successful person has jumped. You got to jump. You got to take a leap of faith. You got to dash off that cliff, and you got to jump out there as far as you can. Now, a lot of times you stand on the cliff of life and you see other people soaring by, gliding down like a bird flying through the air. You know, they going over to the south of France. You see them on a boat somewhere. You see their family vacationing here, their family vacationing there. You see them dressing like this. You see them in New York, then you see them in London. They flying by. You know why? It's because their parachute open. But the only way to get your parachute to open so you can soar, you got to jump. Now here's the problem. Here's the problem, my friends. When you jump, I can assure you one thing. You listening? I promise you this. Your parachute will not open right away. No, that's the fear part. I promise you your parachute will not open right away. You're gonna hit them sides of them rocks. You're gonna carry your back out on them cliffs. You're gonna cut yourself. You're gonna get wounded. You're gonna get some tears and stuff like that. But eventually, parachute will open and you'll be sold. But here's the other caveat. Let me teach you this right here. If you do not jump, I promise you one thing, your parachute will never open. So you safe, but you'll never soar. You got to jump.
If you want to live in a creative way, which will benefit everything in your life, be a better person in your family, be a better, if you're starting a new business, do a better job of starting a new business. It's all the same. You know, I don't really know anything about music. It's more a way of looking at the world and wanting it to be the best it could possibly be and doing whatever it takes to be the best it could possibly be and being true to knowing that no one else knows. You know, I'm not saying I know, but that everyone's idea is as valuable as mine. You know, we're all creators.
Effortless is a myth. I mean it. I say that as someone who has heard that word a lot. Effortless. People would say my play was effortless. Most of the time, they meant it as a compliment. But it used to frustrate me when they would say he barely broke a sweat. Or he's even trying. The truth is, I had to work very hard to make it look easy. Everybody can play well the first 2 hours. You're fit, you're fast, you're clear. And after 2 hours, your legs get wobbly, your mind starts wandering, and your discipline starts to fade. It made me understand I have so much work ahead of me, and I'm ready to go on this journey. I get it. You can work harder than you thought possible and still lose.
So, like, for instance, let's say you have no races. Let's say you have no classes, no nothing. There's no purpose in your life. You know, people need to have purpose to get up. They need purpose to perform. You need to get to a point in your life where there's nothing on the docket. There is no 5K. There's no I'm going to get into school to be this or that, and still perform to the highest level. Because what people don't get is one day that thing's going to come up. And if you're not constantly performing without purpose, you're not going to be ready when the time comes. It's this magical thing, purpose, that we're all looking for. But what's funny about it all is that we need these things to perform. But we don't take a second to realize the purpose is always there. The purpose never leaves us, because the very purpose is you. You are always the purpose. There may be another purpose, like being a SEAL or going to college or whatever, but the main purpose in life is you. So if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to do something, you don't care enough about yourself. And that's what you need to really research is, man, why am I not doing this for myself? Because that is the number one purpose in life, is to better oneself. So that's the only purpose I fucking need. So the reason I get up every day, even though there's no race or there's no school, there's nothing in front of me, is because I have pride in myself. Because I know there's so many people that have the ability and just refuse to get off that couch. Refuse to study a few more hours, refuse to go deeper, to go further. And that's where I gain the advantage. It's so easy to be great nowadays, my friend, because most people are weak. Most people don't want to go to that extra mile. Most people don't want to find that extra because it sucks. It's miserable. It's lonely. You talk about that you were kind of, lonely by yourself. I was the same way. And that used to hurt me growing up. Now I fucking thrive in that shit. That's the only place to be.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept, having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything except my faith. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Fall forward. This is what I mean. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his career, the most in the history of baseball. But you don't hear about the strikeouts. People remember the home runs. Fall forward. Thomas Edison conducted 1,000 failed experiments. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Because the 1,001st was the light bulb. Fall forward. Every failed experiment is one step closer to success. You've got to take risks, and I'm sure you've probably heard that before, but I want to talk to you about why that's so important.
I believe that all of us are here on the planet Earth to learn how to give what we have been given. That's your job, to figure out how you're going to be used for a purpose greater than yourself. When you have money, you get the time to actually think about that. You get the time to actually sit with that and look at how can I be used for something greater than myself. Because when you're not just striving all the time, I grew up in a family where literally the insurance man comes to the door, you tell him, "My mama ain't home," because you don't have enough money even to pay for the insurance. So when you get money and you don't have to worry about the day-to-day, you get to settle into who you're really meant to be in the world without struggling and striving. Now, how do I use this? And that is my prayer constantly, and has been even before I had the money.
We're all writing a book. What's your book look like? What does your fucking book look like? Like your life is a book. You got a bunch of chapters in your book, but when they close that book, how good was the book? How good was your book? What was the ending to your book? If the ending to my book can be so amazing because of all that was done.
How a person thinks is going to determine almost everything about his or her success. In fact, here's what I say, Doug, to you and to all of my friends. When I teach about success, I think the greatest gap in the world between successful and unsuccessful people is the thinking gap. I think successful people think differently, not better, maybe even not smarter, but differently than unsuccessful people. I have never known a person who was a life coach, a leader, a successful person at all, that didn't understand the power of thinking. That's why, Doug, every day in the morning, I look at my schedule and I think and ask myself this question: what's the most important person I'm going to see? What's the most important event I'm going to see and then participate in? Because I want to make sure that I maximize my day. In the evening, I reflect and I say, okay, how did my day go? And I go through my whole hour-by-hour calendar. Why? Because here's what I know. If we go through our day without thinking, we will go through our day without being successful and sowing the seeds that we need that can reap the harvest that only a good mindset can bring to us.
Life rewards action, not intelligence. Life rewards action, not intelligence. Took me a few years growing up to really learn this. I think my sense in school was I did quite well on exams just through intelligence without having to do a lot of work. And for me, when I was quite young, I valued intelligence over action. And I think one of the dangers is smart people, that the smarter you are, the better your excuses. The more accomplished you are in talking yourself out of taking action, in proving to yourself that every action that you could take is too small, too meaningless, and not worth it. And George Leonard, who brought jiu-jitsu from Japan to the US, one of the things he said is, absolutely, you cannot do everything, but you can do one thing, and another, and another. And that's the way you make massive progress in life, by doing one thing, and another, and another. It's the idea that life rewards action, not intelligence.
Working harder. So, I mean, honestly, like what I did wasn't rocket science. For me as a kid, I had dreams bigger than anybody else could ever dream. And I wanted to be the greatest. I wanted to be the best. And I think I always wanted to be the first Michael Phelps because I wanted to do things differently than everybody else. So for me, when I went through a span of 5 or 6 years where I didn't miss a single day of training, 365 days a year, that made me different. I got 52 extra days each year than anybody else had. And in the sport of swimming, if you miss one day, it takes you 2 days to get back to where you were. So everybody else is taking a step back on Sunday when they weren't swimming, and I was taking that one step forward. So for me, it's really all it was. I was willing, I think, to make sacrifices. And I think the greats, I love this. The greats do things when they don't always want to. I think that's what separates good from great.
Importance of the goal, plus, let's just say the importance of the goal to you. So the subjective importance of the goal. How much does that goal matter to you? Plus, the psychological enjoyment you get in the pursuit of the goal, right? So as you pursue the goal, how psychologically enjoyable and reinforcing is that for you? Minus the psychological cost of the pursuit of the goal. So I'll run you through some examples. Simon Sinek said to me, well, Steve, I take the bins out at 7 a.m. in the morning yesterday. I didn't want to do that, but I did it. So I go, okay, let's run that through the framework. What would happen if you didn't take the bins out? That sort of underpins and defines the importance of that goal. Well, he'd get a fine and then he'd have an overflowing bin out the front of his house. So the why is high. The psychological enjoyment of pursuing taking the bins out is very low, right? And the friction of getting out of bed at 7 a.m. is high. But thankfully, the why is so strong that regardless of the fact that the enjoyment of the pursuit is low and the friction is high, the behavior still occurs. Going to the gym, learning to DJ, in all areas of my life, I can run it through that equation and go, okay, so in the pandemic, the reason I've been going to the gym for 3 years straight now is because my why surged. The perception of the importance of that goal surged. I saw how our existing health correlates to our health outcomes, and I realized for the first time in my life, this clear thought that I couldn't unshake, that my health is my first foundation.
I began to believe that I should do everything in my power to avoid failure. But somewhere along the line, I began to see the beauty of failure. I began to realize that we are not defined by how we succeed, but that we are defined by how we fail. Now, at some point in time, every one of us has failed. There's no denying it. And while logic might dictate that failure is something to avoid, it is imperative to understand that personal failure is one of the most important building blocks necessary to create positive changes in this world. It's also important to understand that failure is not the same as quitting or using excuses to validate falling short of our potential. Embracing failure involves understanding that each time we do not succeed, We can use our failures as leverage to strengthen our resolve and to face our obstacles with newfound knowledge and fresh perspectives. And the great thing about this is that understanding how to use failure to change our own lives is just the tip of the iceberg. To witness the benefits of failure in the world around us, the potentials of failure must be realized on an individual level before they can impact larger group dynamics. Now, we can do this by overcoming the misconception that failure confines us. If we begin to view our failures as stepping stones for opportunities, then we allow others to do the same. The individuals who realize the potentials of failure, they are the ones who serve as catalysts for change. They are the ones who instigate subtle cultural shifts that define how businesses, nonprofits, and other organizations shape the world.
It's okay, maybe you're not the most eloquent communicator, speaker out there. It's okay if you're not the smartest. It's okay if you're not the brightest. But it's not okay if you say you're gonna do something and you don't come through. Because there's only one person it hurts when you say you're gonna do something and you don't come through, and that's your willpower. And the more and more and more your willpower gets used to you saying things and not doing, your willpower stops having faith in the words that come out of your mouth. And the moment your willpower, your spirit stops having faith in the words that come out of your mouth, whatever you start telling yourself, your mind is telling you, whatever, he's not gonna do it. She's not gonna do it. He's all talk. They're not gonna do it. No substance, all looks, all sexy on the outside, all attractive, but on the inside, no follow through, no follow up, no willpower. Never, ever put yourself in a situation where you hurt your willpower. Never. Because eventually the world, businesses, companies, families, anything is ran by leaders.
We want everything fast. We cannot wait for anything or anyone. We are impatient. And impatience ruins the game. And the game is called your life. Impatience prevents us from living the life we want. We live with the autopilot engaged, hunting for short-term success. We don't take time to reflect on the states of our lives regularly, and by doing so, we end up with a life that just happened. Doing the same stuff over and over again, even if it's not working.
So I say, take ownership. Take extreme ownership. Don't make excuses. Don't blame any other person or any other thing. Get control of your ego. Don't hide your delicate pride from the truth. Take ownership of everything in your world, the good and the bad. Take ownership of your mistakes, take ownership of your shortfalls, take ownership of your problems, and then take ownership of the solutions that will get those problems solved. Take ownership of your mission. Take ownership of your job, of your team, of your future, and take ownership of your life. And lead. Lead yourself and your team and the people in your life. Lead them all to victory.